Hello and welcome back, my incredible AP Insight family. Abby Phillip here. The trade war is intensifying right now, with fresh U.S. import duties hitting the books in the past few hours. We're looking at a blanket 10% levy applied across the board, rolled out by President Trump following a sharp Supreme Court setback last week that invalidated a whole web of one-sided tariffs he had slapped on goods entering the United States. That higher 15% rate the president floated over the weekend, it hasn't been locked in yet. This current 10% measure draws from a separate statute, Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, and it's designed as a short-term tool, running for up to 150 days. After that window closes, any continuation would require explicit approval from Congress. On Monday, the president fired off a strong message on Truth Social, putting the world on notice. Any nation attempting to exploit or maneuver around what he dismissed as the absurd Supreme Court outcome would face far steeper duties in response. The warning was clear and direct. Don't test this. So where does that leave the United Kingdom? Is there genuine breathing room for British exporters and importers now that the steeper 15% threat hasn't materialized immediately, or is this just more fog in an already chaotic landscape? Joining us to unpack the UK's angle is Marco Forion, Director General of the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade here in the UK. Marco, the guidance that came through from U.S. Customs and Border Protection overnight leaves no ambiguity. The rate stands at 10%. For companies on this side of the Atlantic and really across much of the globe, does this feel like a temporary reprieve, or are we still caught in what you've described as a kind of relentless Trump-driven trade chaos machine? Announcements fly out, then reversals, then fresh twists, clarity one moment, total confusion the next. Even against the backdrop of turbulent international trade we've seen recently, these past few days stand out as truly extraordinary. Businesses everywhere are grappling with whiplash from constant shifts, counter moves, and mixed signals. How are UK firms processing this latest development? Now let's bring in Kaylin Birch, global economist with the Economist Intelligence Unit, for a deeper dive. Kaylin, the central puzzle everyone is wrestling with: why settle on 10% instead of pushing straight to the maximum 15% that Section 122 permits? Is this deliberate strategy, keeping some powder dry to maintain negotiating power, or is external pushback from trading partners forcing a more cautious start? That's exactly the question hanging over markets and boardrooms alike. We're all caught in this spinning cycle of unpredictability, trying to decode the timing and the level chosen. Section 122 does give the green light for up to 15%, so holding back at 10% signals intent to preserve flexibility and leverage. Keep in mind the context. For nations already running significant trade surpluses with the U.S., or those with minimal trade friction, places like the UK where the stakes feel lower, the 10% acts as the new floor. Previously, under the now invalidated framework, certain partners faced elevated rates, sometimes climbing as high as 50% in targeted cases. Those higher layers got wiped out by the court. Don't be shocked if the administration deploys this baseline selectively to turn up the heat on bigger players, the European Union chief among them, demanding fresh concessions, faster approvals of existing pacts, or other wins. But doesn't that create its own contradictions? Section 122 is supposed to hit uniformly. No favorites, no carve-outs baked into the core rate. Yet we've already heard the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer insist that standing bilateral deals with variable terms and specific exemptions will hold firm. That tension alone invites trouble. How can a flat global surcharge coexist with tailored agreements without sparking fresh disputes? You're spot on. This setup risks clashing head-on with existing commitments. The EU, Japan, and others are already dragging their feet on certain negotiations. Are we staring down months of intense bargaining, side deals, and framework haggling just to restore some semblance of predictability? Absolutely. We've looped right back to the uncertainty that dominated last summer. Even with restrictions still layered on in late 2025, by the final quarter, importers and exporters at least had a clearer map of the terrain. Rates were mostly locked in, volatility had eased somewhat. Now we're plunged back into full negotiation mode, scrambling to secure stability. For investors especially, this roller coaster delivers the opposite of what they crave: visibility, consistency, confidence. And legally, enforcing a uniform rate under Section 122 while honoring bespoke exemptions could open the floodgates to more courtroom battles down the line. We have very little time remaining, but one quick final point. Major players like FedEx are already in court as importers, pursuing what could amount to billions in refunds tied to the struck down duties. Do you expect a wave of similar lawsuits chasing repayments? Without question, the Supreme Court's opinion stayed largely silent on restitution, which surprised many observers. It essentially left that avenue wide open. Companies paid under those now invalid measures will press hard for recovery, and more will join the fight.